Hello, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs and baseball podcast hosted by two comedians who love the Cubs, but are stand-up comedians more and more again each day who live in New York. How's it going? I'm Adam Amawala. I'm here with Kevin McCaffrey.
Yeah, how's it going? I'm Kevin McCaffrey. How are you?
I'm good. You look like you got a haircut. I got a haircut as well. You can't see it because I'm apparently backwards hat is my new recording move.
Yeah, I dig it, but your hair looks good. I feel like that looks sharp. I got a haircut from a lady who I've been getting a haircut in New York from. I have a New York haircut lady, and I have a now Glen Ellen haircut guy when I'm back. Fabio, you know Fabio. Yeah, friend of the show, Fabio Giavenco from Punch Barbershop in Glen Ellen.
We got to get him on.
Yeah, I think Fabio would be on, no problem. But yeah, I just found out my haircut lady of 17 years out here is moving to Romania. So I'm screwed. I got to find a new hair person.
I think you'd just go to Romania to get your haircut from now on.
Honestly, there have been times before I had Melody out here, when I would go back to Chicago, where it felt like as much of a thing as going to Romania would be now. But yeah, no, we look good, and that's the point. And follow us at Away Games Pod on Instagram if you want proof of that, and then on Twitter if you care about what our thoughts and feelings are.
And follow at Fabio Giavenco.
Yeah, follow at Punch Barbershop, and
I'm going to assume with a name like Fabio Giavenco, he's a fellow Irishman. Is that
Kilkenny guy for sure. Yeah, he's
just like, it's like a comically Italian name.
Yeah, it's great, and he's a great guy. Gives a great dude's haircut. You'll get a free beer when you're there. It's a great shop. Look at that. The Compound Podcast has no free plugs. We have only free plugs. We receive no money from almost anybody, and yet we'll put over a good product. And speaking of a good product, Adam, how's the baseball you've been watching this week?
I tell you what, it's a pretty damn good product. I for a second I thought I might have some sort of influence again because except for that one game, the Cubs had not lost since I had seen them. And as our loyal listeners from years ago may recall, I believe it was 2018 that I did not see the Cubs lose. I was 9-0 at games during the regular season, which is that's like a not insignificant percentage of their games.
No, it's massively statistically improbable, even for a good team. I mean, it's as improbable as a 9-game winning streak is, which we've seen a couple of this year, right? The A's went on one that was really long. I feel like there was another more than 10-game streak. I mean, the Cubs put together a streak that we hadn't seen since 1916 in terms of the most games in a row where they hadn't lost by more than one. And that was broken a couple days ago, but I think it was like 25, 26 games in a row. So, yeah. I mean, this team's they've been winning most of the games. They're in first place as we speak, as we record this on.
And no one is healthy. That's what's most impressive. You did not if you told me this team would have a stretch where they played really well, I wouldn't have been surprised.
Right.
I also wouldn't have been surprised if you told me they had a stretch where they played really poorly, which they have. Mm-hmm. But either way, I would not have thought that Patrick Wisdom would be involved.
No. Yeah. I mean, Patrick Wisdom. So he's a guy who was a first-round pick, I think a compensatory first-round pick years and years ago, came up with the Cardinals and was traded to the Rangers, and Bleacher Nation had a good write-up on sort of his path, if you want to check that out. But yeah, he's a 29-year-old dude who is a corner infield, corner outfield kind of guy, and he's come up and is just absolutely hammering the ball, and it might be a little more legit than normal out of nowhere guys are, because all the reports were, as Brian Smith at Cub Prospects on Twitter, as he was pointing out, that like everyone said the best hitter in South Bend last year was Patrick Wisdom, that he was just hammering the ball, and that the Cubs, and he came up and got a couple at bats at the end of the year. But you talk about everybody being injured. Let's go down the list of who's injured right now, or who's been injured during this great streak.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously, when we recorded last week, Hayward was injured, Marisnik was injured, Duffy was injured,
Rizzo.
And then who else? I mean, obviously, yeah, in the past week, Rizzo's injured. And what exactly is his status in terms of length of time?
So we're recording this Tuesday morning. So he says he's feeling better and is hoping to be in the lineup Tuesday night. So it seems like he is either he's returning right now or he's on the cusp of it, So that's good. I mean, it's good if he's actually healthy, because I mean, I think this is a time with the Cubs playing as well as they are. Granted, this June's going to be nasty in terms of the schedule. It's a lot of Padres, a lot of Dodgers. It's a lot of good teams in here, but they're playing while they're playing well. You really don't want to rush Rizzo back, you know?
Right. Right. And I mean, Bodie, who knows how
Ugh,
long he's going to be out? Like
right.
that's
And we did,
minimum a couple months, you would think, right?
yeah, dislocated shoulder on what didn't look like a big thing, but man, he was really in pain. And I mean, we're talking David Bodie, Nico Horner, we didn't even really mention, but both starting second basemen are gone.
Right.
And Trevor Williams had a surprise appendectomy. So, I mean,
They always seem to be surprise appendectomies.
yeah,
Don't
they're
they?
not planned appendectomies usually. It's not like I got an appendectomy 3 weeks from Sunday, yeah, so it seems like he's recovering okay. He's already tweeting and seeming like he's feeling good. So hopefully on the mend. But man, I think one thing we can say distinctly is that what Jed Hoyer did with the edges of this roster, they've been better roster edges than we've had in a few years,
Oh yeah.
I mean, like it obviously the starting lineups I think were better over the past few years, but you look at guys like Duffy and Marisnik and Wisdom, and these are useful players off
Even
the bench.
Rafael Ortega, I feel like the quality
Yeah.
of his at bats has been really impressive.
Ortega's been good, and then Sergio Alcantara was just called up. He had a pinch hit double the other day. He was tearing it up in AAA, and he's a guy who who has looked good, has been a genuine prospect in the past, and he's only Nico Horner's age. So even though he's been in professional ball longer, he's still only Nico age. So I mean, yeah, this is, I mean, I think it's most obvious with the pitching, starting to see developments with the Cubs pitching, but even on the positional side, the edges of the roster are great. It just sucks when there's so many injuries that the bulk of your roster is what is supposed to be the edges,
Right. Do you see Patrick Wisdom as like a David Bodie type where he could stick in the majors?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Patrick Wisdom, just looking at his profile from a guy who was a first rounder, struggled a little bit, but then hit pretty well in AAA and, reached the majors, had a good stretch with St. Louis. I believe it was in 2018 before he was traded to the Rangers. This is the profile of absolutely a guy who, I'm not saying necessarily a starter, but this is a guy who it's completely reasonable, not at all surprising that he would be a major league bench player and sometimes starter. So I think it seems like that's a good find. And
yeah, I mean, he's got 3 home runs. He would have 4 if not for an incredibly windy day that knocked down a home run.
Yeah, suppose on the stats that the Cubs have, where they have a thing where it's like how many feet the ball was affected by. Who knows exactly how true that is? There's science behind this, I guess. But that ball was knocked down like 80 feet. I want to say is what they said.
Yeah. I mean, it was comparable that day to the famous Vasgersian, and Baez sends it deep to left. Like that ball would have been on Waveland a lot of days. Talking about game 1 of the NLDS in 16 and
Right.
landed in the basket. Like it was
Yes,
sort of day where like the only way to get a ball out was the David Bodie, like just keep it under the wind.
Yeah, David Bodie, extremely hard line drive. And it was a thing where you hated to see Nico get injured. But gosh, Bodie, after slumping, was, showing some signs and going to get some playing time. So it just really sucks the timing of both of those significant injuries. And they're probably going to both be back around the same time, after, once they hopefully heal up okay. But yeah, Wisdom, I mean, looking at the game against the Padres the other day, several of those home runs were things where just like, as far as the TV feed goes, off the bat, I didn't think any of these things were home runs off the bat. Like where you just don't see balls with that kind of loft to center field go out that much, I don't feel like. But Wisdom is showing straight up the middle and to right field power.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really impressive the way the Cubs are winning games, and the fact that they, to your point earlier, had not lost a game by more than 1 run in like a month. Like that means that you are in every single game, and there's a lot to be said for that. Like, yes, it's frustrating when there are 7 1-run losses over the course of those 25 games, but I think at this point in the season, given what the Cubs have dealt with, you got to feel pretty damn good about being in first place right now.
You're in first place. Yeah. I mean,
you never don't feel good about being in first place, but like the way that they have gotten here.
Well, yeah, because I think this is something, it's not a surprise to either one of us. And I think to a lot of people that the Cubs would be in first place at some point this year, looking at the division and the roster. But yeah, I think what is a surprise is that they're in first place and it feels like there's room to grow on it. I mean, now if you look at if this roster gets healthy and the best players are playing, all due respect to the guys who filled in, but if the best players are here and playing and the team's even better, and obviously the pitching has come around a little bit, the starting pitching's come around a little bit, bullpen's just been great all year. I mean, this starts to look like, okay, this could be a division winner that a better team doesn't want to play in the first round. I mean, it feels like that is where this could be heading. But this month we'll have a lot to say about what direction they go at the trade deadline and stuff.
And I mean, the bullpen, my God, talk about people on the fringes who are just playing their asses off.
Yeah, I mean, they just, and talking about historic streaks, about the not losing by more than one run, the Cubs put together 30 plus consecutive innings of scoreless ball out of the bullpen. And I mean, just everyone in that bullpen has looked really good. And this is something we did say before the year started, was that you looked at the depth at AAA, and we both felt like you could basically make two decent major league bullpens, without knowing exactly who would be, besides Kimbrel, who would be your closer for each. I mean, there's depth in professional bullpen here. And our friend Justin Steele, also talking about injuries, was really killing it up here, and hopefully he'll be healed soon. But we did not know the degree to which the new guys were going to be killing it. I mean, who have been some of your favorites to watch?
I mean, Tommy Nance for sure. Keegan Thompson, absolutely. I know he gave up the home run to Tatis, but there's no shame in that. And I think
a lot of people
the first run he had given up.
Yeah. It took him that long to get an official ERA.
That's a hell of a first run to give up. I think you got to tip your cap there.
You give it, if you give it up to a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, that's nice. And I mean, Keegan just looks nasty out of the bullpen as a multi-inning reliever. He's started missing bats, which he wasn't doing even though he was having success early on. And I think ultimately what we're going to be talking about, it's going to be an interesting offseason after all this pitching development, because the Cubs are going to have to decide who's a starter. Because I don't think either one of us is worried about putting together a sort of top level bullpen going forward, right? I mean, even with people, and there's more prospects coming up that we haven't even seen yet. So,
well, and look at the spot start yesterday.
From Monday, Cole Stewart.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Cole Stewart
and he's someone you've been excited about seeing, right?
Absolutely, because Cole Stewart's a guy, and it's sort of a pitching version of Patrick Wisdom, where Wisdom was a first-round pick. Cole Stewart, I believe, was the 4th pick overall in the Chris Bryant draft. Yep. So he's a guy who came in with a really good pedigree. He was also a highly recruited football quarterback. I believe he was signed to go to Texas A&M, and he did rank ahead of Mitch Trubisky in that high school class as a quarterback, which I saw on Twitter yesterday. But Cole Stewart's a guy who's up to 95, but he has some really interesting spin metrics on his stuff. His cutter is moving really well, and he came up in that spot start for Trevor Williams, and that's a guy who the Cubs do also have under control going forward. So I mean, that could be a dude. And Keegan Thompson, just watching his presence on the mound, watching how he attacks the strike zone and maintains velocity. I mean, to me, I would like to see Keegan get a chance to start going into next year.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. Like, of all of those people we just mentioned, many of whom have started in the minors, who do you see being the most realistic people the Cubs are going to go with next year?
It's interesting because obviously we're not privy to their whole thought process on this, but I mean, I think Keegan Thompson is a guy who was a starter his whole life, started in the SEC in college, pitching at Auburn. And I think he seems to have the body and a profile for a starter going forward. I think they're most likely to give him the shot. I wonder if Justin Steele would be a victim of his own success a little bit. And I mean, give me Justin Steele for an inning and 2 innings, high leverage from the left side as he's been going forward. I would absolutely take that kind of a guy in the bullpen, but I'm not sure he couldn't be a starter either. I mean, he has 2+ pitches, and he's got more pitches than that, but he's got 2 he can really put you away with. And I don't know what their plan is. It seems like he's more likely to be kept in the bullpen as a high leverage guy. But I think Keegan Thompson and Steele are both guys you're considering. And Corey Abbott is a guy who was the Cubs pitcher of the year in the minors a couple years ago, and he just struck out 13 and was up to 95 in Iowa. So I mean, it's really exciting seeing the pitching that we already have here and the pitching that's coming for sure.
Right. Yeah, and Tommy Nance wouldn't be somebody who would really factor into that mix, probably,
For
right?
starting, I don't think so. Just
Yeah.
because, man, I mean, looking at him close out the ninth of a five run game, but just like send the whole inning to pitching ninja from yesterday. If you guys
Yeah.
haven't seen, like, he throws a curveball that spins faster, spins more than anyone who throws it at that speed, basically. Like, it's a hard curve. Same goes for his slider. And the fastball was 97 and moving like a Greg Maddux two-seamer yesterday. So it's just like,
Yeah.
Jesus, is Tommy Nance the closer of the future? Our 30-year-old indie ball Tommy Nance? Maybe.
Possibly. You got to figure with that spin rate, Trevor Bauer's going to be harassing him on Twitter pretty soon.
Absolutely. Call him a cheater. Do it, Trevor, you coward.
Speaking of cowards, what
Yes.
is the policy on stopping down the first baseline to take a selfie when you're playing baseball in a prison?
That is, that is a great question. And I guess we might find out in prison softball soon. National baseball news. If you guys aren't aware, Marcelo Zuna choked his girlfriend or wife. I'm not exactly sure, but he choked someone, which you're not supposed to do. This is the report. He was taken into custody. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see how cocky he is pimping those shots in prison, hopefully. I mean, doesn't it suck that it feels like it would be a big upset for any of these abusive pieces of shit to actually go to prison,
Yeah, and let alone go to prison, not be re-signed by a team like very soon, as soon as they're allowed to.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, and it's like there is such privilege that comes with being just a rich person in America, and certainly someone who a large corporation finds monetary value in, like these players. So the defense they get is not equivalent to the defense that normal citizens get. But TLDR, Marcelo Zuna, an abusive piece of shit, should never put on a baseball uniform again. And he's not the only one. There's obviously Cubs fans know.
The Yankees have two of them.
Yeah. So the Yankees have Domingo Germán right now, right? And our old player, Aroldis Chapman, is there too. And obviously, Cubs fans, we're familiar with this kind of piece of shit. We had Addison Russell, we had Aroldis Chapman. The Dodgers are still employing Julio Urias. There are. I mean, we could tweet at us at Away Games Pod. I'll give you a whole list of every piece of shit we have confirmed. And I mean, I think Adam and I are both people who it's a sport, it's an entertainment, but I like feeling good about who I'm rooting for. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I also I realize that it's a tricky situation sometimes for teammates because there's this like almost cop-like vibe, I feel like, in clubhouses of like, oh, we got to be like team first and never say anything negative about our teammates. But the idea that people would be willing to be in the same clubhouse and dugout as someone who would do something like that. Like, I am not condoning any, a DUI, but I could understand somebody saying like, well, this person made a mistake. They've like apologized for it. Blah, blah. Like, it's just very hard for me to imagine people, many of whom at least proclaim to be like family first people, to be like, yeah, he made a mistake in strangling and like trying to like murder his wife in some cases, but like, he apologized. And so
right. Well, I think because this is not a virtue signal, but you either have that in you or you don't. You know what I mean? Like someone obviously DUIs are horrific. DUIs can cause death, and obviously there are people who have the privilege of getting away with a bunch of those too, Tony La Russa, I mean, so there, and none of that is good. But like you say, it's sort of like you could see a mistake leading to that, as opposed to it's a different thing. That no one just like, oopsie, I tried to murder my partner, basically. This is something that is baked into a bad person. And you can talk about, I mean, this is my opinion, and you can talk about, oh, they need to get help and whatever. Yeah, that's fine. They don't have to be playing Major League Baseball. This is a person who, if we have prisons, this is who that's for. It's for someone like this. It's for a sociopath like Marcell Ozuna and a lot of the people we just named. So I would feel much better about watching baseball without that guy anywhere near the field, without anywhere
or any of the people that we just mentioned.
All of them, absolutely. Roberto Osuna too is another one who was with the Astros for the last couple years, and I mean that was a case where the teammates were put in a terrible position where it's not the teammates who sign the guy, right? And then they're put in a position like Verlander was put in a position of like having to defend the team's choice when he didn't sign him. He's playing for the team, right. You know, that sucks. You and I have both probably, you know, I'm surely.
Yeah, we've been on shows with bad people.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's sort of like you can, and sometimes you don't have any control over that. And yeah, it's.
I mean, did I turn down opening for Jeremy Piven? Sure. Would I do it again? Yes.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That's well, good for you. I did not know that story. He would just from a comedic standpoint too. He would have had a tough time following a stand-up comedian.
I would have buried him.
Yeah, yeah. He's just you know, yeah, man. It's that was a shitty piece of news to see this week, and hopefully, I mean, I don't feel optimistic that we've seen the last of Marcell Ozuna in baseball, but here's hoping, you know.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot to some more fun news. Javi Baez doing fun things is not something that that is new to us. You and I in person saw Javi Baez steal home at Citi Field, and yet in the 7+ years of seeing Javi in the majors and even more than that in the minors. Where do you rank what happened last week in the pantheon of Javi being Javi plays?
It's the over. I mean, you'd kind of have to say. I think it's the overall craziest play, and shout out to Wilson Contreras too, who scored from second on a grounder to third. Yep. So which is also insane. And if you have those two guys on the bases, Wilson he gets caught out a little more than Javi does in his adventurous base running. But if you just want sheer aggressive chaos on the bases, that's the perfect twosome to have out there. So like Javi grounding to third, and then when the throw pulled Will Craig off first base with the Pirates, and Javi's just like, well, there's no rule that says I have to go to first base, and then he just literally runs home. Wilson slides in, Javi calls him safe, does the symbol, which is incredible, and then dives into both first and second. I mean, the
only thing that could have made it better is if it just continued like a full Little League play where they just kept throwing it away and he kept getting one base further until he ultimately scored. But watching that, it was also chaotic that like when Wilson scored, even though I know the rule that like obviously if he's thrown out at first, none of it matters.
Right.
The fact that there was still a world in which a good throw to first means that none of that counts. And that didn't happen. It was just, it's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I knew my brain at first was like, why doesn't Will Craig just touch the base and it's over? But then after Wilson scored, I forgot about the rule. Like, so in my head, the run just counted no matter what, even though if they still forced him at first, it's the baseball time travel rule, basically, where the run never counted. Yeah, it was extremely fun. It was chaotic, and it's not corny or homery to say that Javi causes these things to happen, because as a fielder, you have to make more choices when Javi is running. So it's almost a numbers game at that point, because there's just more variables and it's more chances for you to mess up, you know? And and since Javi just always forces things like this, he gets more of those things to happen. And they needed that run. They needed, because then he ended up scoring from second. They needed those runs to win that game.
Yeah, no, Will Craig, I mean, I feel for the guy. I think he's a good fielder, and it just seemed like his brain stopped working. But it was almost one of those things where, and we see this all the time in New York, like sometimes somebody is doing something that's so crazy that you're like, wait a second, am I crazy? Like, I think what Javi was doing was so bizarre that intellectually, if you like did a Save by the Bell and it was like, all right, freeze, all right, like, Will Craig, what do you need to do here?
Yeah.
Not only would he probably just touch first, but even if not, as long as you tag Javi at some point, there's nowhere for him to go. He can't run past home, and like he
Right.
can't like run away into the dugout and just, it's not playing tag to tag someone.
Right. Well, and
But it just caused him into like forgetting how his brain worked.
because I think at first he was like, all right, you're doing the back pedal thing. I'll just run, I'll jog up to you. And I think it was a thing where you're like, well, I'm trying to play it cool. I don't have to sprint at him. I don't want to, because you just feel out of place sprinting at a guy in that position. And it's like, no, you should. And then you see Wilson running and your brain's like, wait, is this allowed? Are there more guys coming? Are they just sending more dudes? Right. So I think point by point, you can absolutely, if you're being honest, understand how you get to the point that Will Craig was at mentally. And by the way, if the catcher makes a good throw, it's Javi's still likely out, and no one and the guy should, and the second baseman should have been covering first base to begin with. I know it's
also weird people should have been yelling at him to just tag for like that. It's on his teammates as much as it's on him.
Oh yeah, because I mean we still have reduced capacity, but also it's Pittsburgh, which is a natural capacity reducer. Right. So I mean, like this is so you could actually hear what was going on pretty well. But man, yeah, I mean, what a fun Javi and Wilson thing from last week, in a week that was like filled with just like, it's been fun to watch the team lately, It's
been a lot of fun. And poor Will Craig is going to be on blooper reels for the next 50 years.
Yeah, I hope he has a good run here, and he gets to laugh about it too,
You can't trust people with two first names.
It's do the Cubs have any two first name dudes? Like Cole Stewart, you could say now.
Yeah.
Although those are sort of trick ones, but yeah.
I guess technically Chris Bryant. Bryant is an uncommon first name, but it is a name.
Absolutely. No, that's true. That counts. And I'll trust him. But Chris Bryant's always up to something. Where's he going to play? He's sneaky. He'll take 5 positions. I love
it. He seems to be. Chris Bryant is a star level player. So if he didn't want to be doing that, I don't think he'd be doing it. No, he's playing that many positions.
No, and he's just been a cool, chill, underrated. I mean, he's an underrated MVP, underrated World Series champion, and I mean, he just is up for doing whatever, and he's just so. He's extremely hard on himself and extremely competitive, and he's always surprised when he doesn't succeed on any given play. He's always surprised and annoyed about it, but he's very chill in the way that he's up for doing any of these things, and he's the kind of athlete that can do all of it, and he should never leave the Cubs. And I mean, gosh, it's almost boring to just keep talking about how the Cubs should extend these people, but I mean, especially watching how Breslow and Hottovy have figured out a pitching infrastructure here, you got to spend money on the offense, and the offense is coming from inside the house. They're here. Please keep these guys,
I tell you what, if there's any situation where the Cubs are like, a game out of first and the Cubs and they end up trading like Bryant and Kimbrel, people are going to lose their fucking minds. And I'm going to be one of them.
Sure. Yeah. It will be a real, I know the Cubs related guys will every once in a while be like, we have to do an explicit episode. Many of our episodes are explicit, but that will be that'll be an NC-17 episode for sure.
Absolutely. You got anything else?
No, I mean, we're the Cubs are going to come visit us in Queens pretty soon, so you and I are going to go see them at Citi Field. One of the games coming up soon. That'll be exciting. And I mean, right now it's just like they're playing the Padres a lot. It's too bad. It looks like, I mean, we don't want to face Yu Darvish because we don't want to lose. But if we were going to lose to Yu Darvish, it'd be more fun to give him a round of applause at home. And it looks like, unfortunately, the Cubs are going to be missing him there. But it's a lot of Padres lately. It's a lot of Padres on the schedule coming up, and Dodgers are going to be coming up as well, and the Giants too, who have been playing crazy good baseball. Yeah. So it's just a nasty month, and we'll see if the Cubs can play 500 through this. I mean, I think it is a real contender So
yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Chris Taylor for maybe the at-bat of the year last night. 14 pitch at-bat culminating in a bases clearing double against the Cardinals.
Against the Cardinals. Yep, putting the Cubs in first solo. So yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. We are at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, we will catch you soon next week. And we might even have a surprise midweek episode. Stay tuned for that.